Brad Williams, Excel Prime. Let's work with the floor function along with placing time into 3-hour categories. A couple little issues you need to focus on when dealing with this floor function, and I'm going to point those out to you here. The floor function rounds a number down to the nearest specified multiple, rounds down. The floor function here, you can read this here. I'm not going to go over this. Over here is our normal write-up. I'm going to cover this quickly. You can use the floor rounding function to group times into categories by 2 hours, 3 hours, whatever number you want. It's going to round a number down. In the illustration that we see, there are several transactions and each one has its own timestamp. Suppose you want to divide these transactions into groups of 3 hours like this. 1 to 4, 4 to 7, 7 to 10, 10 to 1. For instance, a time of 4:30 a.m. needs to be placed in the category corresponding to the hours between 4 a.m. and 7 a.m. The time of 10:45 a.m. needs to be placed in the category for the hours between 10 and 1 p.m., and so on. If you give it some thought, you might see that one strategy for accomplishing this goal is to round the number each time until it can be placed in the appropriate category. On the other hand, in contrast to a regular rounding, in which we might round to the nearest multiple, we want to round down to the nearest multiple. We will begin with midnight as our starting point. Excel times are just decimal numbers. Therefore, you can easily achieve this with the floor function, which rounds down to a multiple that you specify. This is possible because Excel times are just decimal numbers. Floor calls the argument that represents multiple significance. Even more remarkable, floor is aware of how to round the time that is provided in a format such as hours, minutes. For example, 3 or 12. Here's the formula, floor D5, 3. Since floor is able to read the time, it converts the value 3 to its decimal counterpart, which is 0.125. After that, it just rounds down to the nearest multiple of 0.125 at each and every opportunity. You may apply the same strategy to organize times into a standard bucket that you see fit by using this approach. Kind of a long write-up for what seems to be relatively simple. Let me point out another thing. I just unlocked this particular worksheet, and I've made this comment time and time again. This part of Excel making life more miserable by putting these arrows up here, because this worksheet is not locked, just points out some of the nuances within Excel. You have to protect the sheet, protect sheet to get rid of these arrows. I'm going to protect the sheet. And with the worksheet now protected, notice the annoying green triangles are no longer viewable. The floor function, floor D5, 6 a.m. This is a simple example. And the reason I'm pointing this out, I'll tell you why. Floor D5, 6 a.m. It's going to be 6 a.m. Not going to round down within its own number. We're good there. 8:59 a.m. Notice how it breaks down and rolls all the way back down to the 6 a.m. category. The 9 a.m., notice 9 a.m., similar to the 6, goes in the 9 a.m. bucket. That's fine. If you go to 9:01, it's going to go to the 9 bucket. If we go to 11:59, if we go to 11:59, notice it also goes into the 9 o'clock bucket. The point is, there's a break point here. Whenever you categorize something, there's going to be a break point, and it's critical that you find that break point. And you can still see, we can go all the way out to 11:59:59, and it's going to roll this back down to the floor function, 9 a.m. 12:15 p.m., 12 p.m. 12:01 p.m., 12 p.m. 12:59 a.m., 12 a.m. Straightforward, no magic, just understanding what we're doing. We have a number, and we have a significance. The number here is the number you arbitrarily insert. In the significance, we put 3. Notice it's time. Notice this is time. In order to stay consistent, you need to put this in double quotes. The data will fall back into the specific category. If you want this 6-hour intervals, you can do it. 1-hour intervals, any combination you want. Read the floor function, read the write-up if you need to. Take a look at the anatomy and the map. Fool around with the data. Change the time to numbers if you need to. This other ID and the amount is not relevant. We just put the time in the categories. Brad Williams, XL Prime. See you soon.